Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Michael, and as always, we're going to be getting into some more stories. If you enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and if you're new, I'd appreciate if you subscribed. Without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a throwaway account in the Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "My boyfriend is really into anime. I don't watch cartoons, but he convinced me to watch some of his favorites. I wish I didn't, and now I can't see him the same way. My 29-year-old boyfriend is really into anime. It's honestly his biggest hobby. I don't watch cartoons. However, my boyfriend has been trying to get me to watch with him. We've been together for almost 18 months and we've lived together for 4 months. My boyfriend said it would mean a lot to him if I watched it with him, so I decided to give it a try. I wish I hadn't. I was gobsmacked. I can honestly say I wish I had never watched any of it. Even thinking about it now makes my skin crawl, and it took me a while to be able to write this post. There was lots of sexual assault, multiple instances of male characters being in relationships with girls, but it's okay because they aren't actually young girls. They are over 1,000 years old. There are gross and unrealistic proportions on pretty much every female character, no matter their age. Almost none of them wear proper clothes. The way female characters are portrayed and treated is frankly gross. Ever since I watched, I can't see my boyfriend the same way. This wasn't just one episode or one single anime. All of the ones he watches are the same. My boyfriend says these are his favorite kind, and he doesn't see any problems with them. He told me I'm overreacting and that there is nothing wrong with any of it, whether it happens in anime or in real life. I'm so grossed out. I had no idea these were the kinds of cartoons he likes. Every time I think of it, my skin crawls. This week, I'm away for a family wedding while my boyfriend had to stay back in Brisbane for his job, so I have some time to think. Ever since my boyfriend told me he doesn't see any problems with what his cartoons portray, I can't think of him the same way. I don't think I can continue the relationship knowing he feels this way. He says my opinions are outdated. I don't see how we can move past this. Update. My update isn't very exciting. When I got back to Brisbane, there was another argument about my ex-boyfriend's anime, and he kept telling me I was overreacting and being a prude or stuck up. He broke up with me, so I made plans to move out. I moved out less than a week later, and he was shocked. Apparently, he didn't really mean to break up with me and thought it would just be a wake-up call that the cartoons were not so bad. I still moved out, and I temporarily went to stay with one of my brothers and his wife. I was a little nervous about moving to another city because I had lived in Brisbane for 3 years and considered it my home. But I've moved before and I had to leave after the way my relationship ended. I don't watch cartoons, but I tried to give the ones my ex-boyfriend watches a chance because it was his biggest hobby and I wanted to be a good girlfriend. I had no idea those cartoons would be so disgusting. My ex-boyfriend was shocked when I moved out, and even though he broke up with me first, he got upset that I was breaking up with him. I haven't had contact with him since I left. I've moved on. I have just been accepted into a PhD program and I'm so excited. I have no plans to have contact with my ex-boyfriend or to watch any cartoons again. Honestly, I don't really care about what people usually think about anime as long as they themselves don't make the situation weird. But I will say there are moments where I myself feel off with this form of media. I know with the thumbnails on this channel, especially in the past, I was sometimes pushing the boundaries, but that's about where I set my own limits of comfortability. Anything past that I just think is weird. I think ultimately breaking off the relationship was a good move if something like this created recurring arguments. User Avia said, "Yeesh, I'm a strong believer that taste in fiction isn't an indicator on its own of anything. My own taste is pretty messed up, but as soon as it hits the real life bit and pressuring it on her instead of apologizing for showing her things that made her uncomfortable, yikes, glad she got out." In response, a deleted user said, "Also, the fact that he didn't even want to admit it's kind of messed up. I could see going, yeah, that part's not great, but I watch it for XYZ. But his reaction was so telling, even a fake breakup to get her to think it's fine." User muted category said, "The fact that he tried to argue that that kind of stuff was acceptable in real life is very concerning. I've seen some pretty weird stuff in anime. The fake breakup to try to pressure her into agreeing with him outwardly was disappointing, but sadly not unexpected." This next story was made in the AITA subreddit by a user named ReasonableVast25. The post is titled, "I asked my husband to limit his time with his nephews because our daughters are missing out." Hi, I had an issue yesterday with my husband that I'm conflicted about regarding whether I was in the wrong. My husband and I have 2 daughters, ages 6 and 8. My sister-in-law and her family live a couple of blocks away from us. They have 2 boys, both 9 years old. Her husband is in the army, so he is away from home a lot. When he's away, the boys come to our house often. They're great boys, respectful and energetic. When they're here, my husband takes them to the park to play soccer. They always say they have a great time, and my sister-in-law also thanks us for it. When they're not around, my husband takes our daughters to the park too, and I often join them. They also look forward to it. However, when my husband takes the boys along, even though we encourage our girls to go, they've told me they don't enjoy it. Basically, the boys get super competitive and it's not fun the way it is when it's just them with my husband. I take them along by myself, but apparently it's not as much fun. Haha. My husband can also only go on certain days of the week, and when their father's away, the boys come on those days. Yesterday, I asked my husband to talk to his sister and set some kind of limit on those days because our daughters like going to the park with him for soccer, and it's not the same with me or when they go with him and the boys. He looked taken aback and said that they're good kids. Their dad's away for long stretches, and they seem to have fun here. I said I never said they weren't good kids, just that our daughters felt like they were missing out. He said he'll encourage them more to come with them and he'll make sure things don't get too competitive. I said we've gone through that before and it's just not fun for them. He said telling his nephews this would be cruel and made it sound like I was a jerk for suggesting it. Update. Since today was a holiday, he was going to let his sister know that he'd be taking the kids to the park earlier, so the boys should come earlier. I asked my older daughter separately whether she wanted to go. She said no, even though she'd been hyped for it in the morning. I told my husband this. While she was cuddling with him, he asked her why she didn't want to come, but she avoided giving a reason. Eventually, my husband asked if it was because she didn't like playing soccer anymore. She said no, she did. Then he brought up whether it was because of the cousins, and she shyly admitted that it was, but didn't give the details she'd given me about the competitive nature and everything. My husband hadn't texted his sister yet, so he told the girls the boys couldn't join right now and that if they still wanted to go to the park, we could all go. Both my daughters suddenly really wanted to go and went to get dressed. So we're at the park now and the girls are having fun with him. I think he's going to take the boys later in the evening, I'm not sure, but my daughter telling him seems to have made more of an impact than me saying it did. Update 2, a few people had asked me if we've made any progress. So last Tuesday, after we'd gone to the park in the afternoon with the girls because of the holiday, he had planned on taking the boys separately. I told him he'd be too tired, but then he couldn't because he was beat. So he told his sister something had come up. His Fridays are hit or miss in terms of when he gets back. It kind of depends, though he usually has a sense of how it'll be beforehand. So my oldest daughter had asked him about his Friday plan on Thursday night. He said he'd be back early and that they'd be good to go to the park. He then talked to her about whether it would be a good idea to have her cousins come too, saying it would be fun like it used to be, and the girls said okay. When they came back, my husband thought he'd done a good job moderating things, and the girls also said it had been okay. They weren't as enthusiastic as they are when they go with him alone, so over the weekend I asked my oldest if their playtime at the park had gone better because her dad had been trying to make it fun for everyone. She said it had, but that he isn't as into the game with them as he usually is. Basically, the gist I was getting was that he takes more of a referee role and it's just different from what they're used to. I have gone along when it's just us, so I kind of understand what she's talking about. It's supposed to be them playing soccer with him, but it's not really, it's very unstructured. They'll start playing whatever the girls feel like midway through. It's just more spontaneous, I guess. I had planned on bringing it up with him on Sunday before they all left for the park. My daughter seemed shy about saying all this, so I thought I would, but she actually brought this up with him herself. On Saturday night when we were watching TV, she asked him if we couldn't invite the cousins the next day. My husband said okay, but asked her why she didn't want the cousins there. He later told me he was just concerned about the issue she had with them and wanted to make sure it wasn't anything serious. She just said they don't have as much fun, so he dropped it. I'd gotten this idea from a few comments on my original post, so I told him I'd tell his sister to still send the boys earlier and that I'd go with them, and he agreed. So I took them out earlier and tried to keep up with them, but I thought it went well. I took them for ice cream afterward too. The boys got a good outing and my sister-in-law got some rest as well. Yesterday we were going to do the same thing, but my sister-in-law told us the boys said they'd just wait for when my husband is free. She asked him when he'd be free and whether his free days had changed. He said there had just been some changes to his schedule. I was of the opinion that he should tell her honestly what the issue is, but he seems to think making our daughters the focus of the conversation would be wrong. I disagree, but she's his sister. So he went yesterday with the girls by himself, and they've been super happy. He said he'll come up with something for the boys too. It's a bit disappointing because I thought the solution I tried worked well, but apparently not. So it's still a work in progress. Update 3, for those of you who've been asking how things are going, we had a sticky moment on Thanksgiving when we went to my husband's uncle's house a few hours away. The entire family was there and he had a beach ball. My daughters were passing it to each other and keeping it off the ground with their heads, and his uncle was praising them. My 8-year-old kind of bragged and said that it was nothing. On Fridays with their dad, they had managed to keep it up for 14 bounces. My sister-in-law kind of pieced it together and realized that my husband hadn't been honest about the change in schedule and that he had been going to the park with our daughters alone. So we finally addressed the issue with her. She said her boys were fond of my husband and that they'd been sensing he was pulling away. They weren't stupid. We told her that our daughters had been feeling a bit left out, so he had been taking time out just for them. She said that we're all family and that it would be good for the girls to learn to play with others and share. My husband and I had been diplomatic for the most part, but at that point I had to defend my girls. I said that they can't be expected to share their dad, that wanting to spend alone time with him is perfectly normal, and that if it really were an issue with them not wanting to share, they'd be arguing among themselves too. But that was never the case. They were perfectly fine playing with my husband together. My husband was more conciliatory. He said we should want to make sure the kids don't start resenting each other. They're cousins and should be on good terms. She said she'd always appreciated how we had helped her and her boys, that it wasn't anyone's fault that her husband was away for months on end, and that family comes together in these times the way we all had. I brought up the idea that since the boys were into playing soccer competitively, she should enroll them in the local community center. She said it wouldn't be the same and that we were making a big deal out of this. She even said I should send the girls to her place instead. I said sure, on the days when my husband wasn't available, I could do that. He placated her, saying he'd work something out for them. So for now, he's taking our girls out alone on Tuesdays. On Friday, he took everyone out and we encouraged our girls to go too, and they did. And on Sunday, he said he'll go with the girls alone again. It seems like we've struck a balance for now. He told me he'll continue with this until the girls feel comfortable enough to play with their cousins. I can tell he feels guilty, and I do a bit too. I'm fond of the boys as well, but my girls are definitely happier with this arrangement and I can't look past that. Thanks a lot for the advice, and I'm hoping everyone can be happy with this state of things. Final update, we've stuck to twice a week being just for the girls and Fridays when the nephews join too. We both encourage my daughters to join them because my husband especially wants them to be close and friendly with each other. Since they're getting enough solo time with their dad, they're much happier about it too. My sister-in-law had been insisting that the girls go to her place and that she could then be the one to take the girls while my husband and the boys go to the park. I was a bit reluctant, primarily because we had set up a balance that worked and I wasn't thrilled at the prospect of my husband and my daughters losing their one-on-one bonding experiences. But we figured that she is their aunt, and if the girls have fun, so be it. When I later asked them, they didn't seem over the moon about it. They had watched Frozen together, which my girls had already seen, and done some coloring. The next time my husband and the girls were going to the park for soccer, she called the day before about changing the plans, and I said the change wouldn't work for the girls and that we wanted to stick to what we had. She sounded disappointed, unfortunately. I'd also taken stock of some of the comments saying I wasn't pulling my share. I have tried to emulate the way he plays with them, spontaneous and unstructured, but I just don't know. When I go with them and see them with him, they're laughing more, jumping around more, just the little things, like him scooping them up and turning them upside down while they're laughing. That just wouldn't occur to me in the moment. I take comfort in the fact that there's stuff they just like doing with me too. My brother-in-law returns next month, so that should help. Although, even when he's here, the boys have taken to coming over, and I don't say no, I like them. It will still help them because their dad will be in the house. Thanks a lot. This isn't about necessarily putting someone over another person, but when it comes down to your own kids and your extended family, I don't think it's unfair to prioritize your own people. If the daughters want more alone time with just their dad without the nephews, then I think that should be adjusted for. In my opinion, the sister-in-law was overstepping, trying to get OP's husband to spend more time with his nephews. That's not to say he should ignore them, but your own daughters matter more, and if there's any extra time, then that can be allocated to the nephews. User Big O Nerd said, I really feel for OP here. This isn't about being jealous or excluding the nephews, it's about OP noticing that her daughters get all dressed in their kit and come back super happy when it's just them and their dad. That matters. The sister-in-law framing it as the girls needing to share their dad feels unfair. Wanting one-on-one time with a parent is normal, especially when OP has clearly tried to compromise and still include the boys. User Impressive Amoeba said, I think it's hilarious. Sister-in-law tried to even it out with the girls, but time with her was so bad that the girls don't want to do it again. Sister-in-law was so sure her time and effort theft from her nieces was over-dramatization on their part. And then she found out she has nothing to offer those girls either. She can't reciprocate what her brother has to give. I'm sure it's an ego blow.